All right, today we are diving into Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is a book that promises to totally change the way you think about progress, about success, about everything, really. So let's get right into its most powerful ideas.
You know, think about pretty much every piece of self-help advice you've ever gotten. It's always about setting bigger goals, bolder ambitions, right? But James Clear starts by flipping that whole idea on its head. He asks, what if the problem isn't you? What if the problem is the goal itself?
And that question leads us right into the first huge idea from the book. We need to completely rethink our goals. Let's dig into why our obsession with the finish line might be the very thing that's holding us back. To really get this, you just have to look at the story of the British cycling team. For over a century, they were basically the laughingstock of the entire sport. I mean, their reputation was so bad that top bike companies wouldn't even sell them equipment. They had a goal, obviously, to win, but that goal by itself was totally and completely useless. And this is where we hit on a really critical difference. A goal, that's the result you want, like winning the Tour de France. A system, though, that's the process that leads to those results. It's the daily training, the small diet improvements, the coaching. And here's the big insight. Winners and losers often have the exact same goals. The real difference maker? It's their system. Because you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So, if just focusing on the outcome is a trap, where should we put our attention instead? Well, the answer lies in something much, much smaller. It's the absolutely astonishing power of tiny incremental gains.
The entire philosophy of Atomic Habits can pretty much be boiled down to this one single number, 1%. The idea is so simple. What if you just tried to get 1% better every single day? It feels like nothing, right? But the long-term effect, well, it's absolutely profound. And this is where that 1% really shows you its magic. Get 1% better each day, and by the end of the year, you're nearly 38 times better than when you started. But get 1% worse each day, and you basically fade away to nothing. It's just proof that your daily trajectory, that tiny little path you're on, matters so much more than where you are right now. This is the compounding interest of self-improvement.
Here's a great way to think about it. Imagine an airplane taking off from LA headed for New York. If the pilot adjusts the course by just 3.5 degrees, a tiny, almost unnoticeable shift, that plane will land in Washington, D.C. instead. The same thing is true for our habits. A seemingly minor change in your daily routine can steer your entire life to a completely different destination down the road.
But if this is so powerful, why doesn't it feel like it's working right away? Well, Clear has a name for this: the plateau of latent potential. Picture an ice cube in a cold room. You start raising the temperature, 28 degrees, then 29, 30, 31, and it feels like nothing is happening. But then you hit 32 degrees and bam, you get a breakthrough. All that work you did before wasn't wasted. It was just being stored. All the action happens right at that tipping point. Okay, so we know that tiny, consistent efforts are the secret sauce. But to actually build those habits, we gotta understand how they work inside our own brains. And it all comes down to a really simple 4-step loop. This 4-step pattern is the engine behind every single habit you have, the good ones and the bad ones. It's this endless feedback loop that your brain runs on autopilot all day long to solve problems and save energy. In fact, it's running right now, in the background, as you're listening to this. So here are the 4 stages. First, you've got the cue, which is the trigger. Second is the craving. That's the motivation. Third, there's the response, which is the actual habit you do. And finally, you get the reward, which satisfies the craving and tells your brain, hey, let's do that again next time. So if that's the science, how do we actually put it into practice? This is where Clear gives us a super practical toolkit designed to let us hijack this very loop. He calls them the 4 laws of behavior change. This is really the core framework of the whole book. To build a good habit, you just walk through 4 questions. How can I make the cue obvious? How can I make the craving attractive? How can I make the response easy? And how can I make the rewards satisfying? And if you want to break a bad habit, you just flip them. Make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. Let's just zoom in on one of these laws, because it's maybe the most powerful of all. Make it easy. See, our brains are hardwired to conserve energy. That means we will almost always, by default, choose the option that requires the least amount of effort. So the secret to being consistent isn't about willpower. It's about designing your good habits to be the path of least resistance. And a super simple way to do this is with what he calls the 2-minute rule. Whatever your habit is, shrink it down until it takes less than 2 minutes to do. So read before bed becomes read 1 page. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. The goal at the beginning isn't to master the habit. It's just to master the art of showing up. You make the start so easy, you can't say no.
Now, we're going to get to what I think is the most profound idea in this entire book. This stuff isn't just about what you do, it's about who you become. You see, true behavior change is identity change. The goal isn't just to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal isn't just to run a marathon, it's to become a runner. Every single time you perform one of these tiny habits, you are casting a vote for the kind of person you want to be. You are literally building your identity, one tiny action at a time. So in the end, it all comes down to the small choices we make, right here in the present moment. And the question to leave you with is this: what is one small, tiny vote you can cast for your desired identity today?